feel like I should know better. How many Advents have I been through? Please, no numbers. I get thinking about Advent candles and twinkling lights and getting out the decorations and Advent potlucks and even looking way ahead, those 4 weeks ahead to Christmas Eve in this all too short Advent season. I get distracted by all of this and I forget how Advent starts. Seems like a nightmare. It starts in terror and what looks like the end times, in chaos and disappearances and keeping awake through trauma. Yet, every year I start from, when this season rolls around, isn't this cozy and helpful lighting candles in the darkest time of the year? And every year I feel surprised that it all seems so traumatic and hopeless when we read those Advent 1 scriptures. Maybe this year, the terror of it all is getting through to me a little more because some of what is described is what our neighbors are actually experiencing. Showing up for their court appearances or green card appointments, following the rules and process only to be snatched away by masked ICE agents with no warning or explanation or hope of a swift return. No one knows the day or the time. When staying awake, like we see it in our scriptures, isn't used metaphorically to be present and mindful, but instead vigilant in a nightmare situation, we're talking about something else other than Advent hope. In dream interpretation, one of the approaches that wise ones recommend is to notice how the dream begins and then how it ends. So if Advent were a dream, we start in chaos and terror, and we end with the birth of a divine child. Or if we were to use Advent candle language, we start with hope and we end with love. Do you start with hope? I don't. I'd like to tell you that I do, but usually I don't. I usually start with practicality or fear or cynicism, and then hopefully I can add a dash of curiosity and compassion, and then I get to love eventually. But it's not an easy road. It's not a short 4-week liturgical season kind of road. I think I need more weeks than that to get there. So this year, I am so struck by the fact that we start Advent with hope. It's how it begins, year after year. We launch the season with hope. This seems very in your face and courageous this year to start anything with hope. How do you feel about hope? I bristle at the cheery Hallmark movie version of hope. I don't want to deal with a hope that isn't well acquainted with reality. I don't want to hear from a hope that tells me what I'm perceiving or feeling isn't faithful enough. You ever heard about that kind of hope? Sometimes people are happy to tell you about it. I want a gritty hope, maybe more gremlin than Disney princess. I'd like a scrappy hope. The Irish poet Pádraig Ó Tuama tells a story of attending one of his book launches. This one was in Dublin. And he asked the people that were gathered there to share a particular poem or excerpt of a poem that they often or even occasionally called to mind. And someone quoted that famous Emily Dickinson poem, "Hope is the thing with feathers." Maybe you know that. And when the person said that, there were coos and murmurs because it's a beloved line, right? Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. However, someone clearly objected a bit, and a voice called out, "Hope may not have feathers, but it's definitely got claws. And the group burst out laughing. And it shows that not every metaphor works for every person. The little bird of hope was not for everyone that day. But hope is big and sturdy enough to take our questions and our curiosities about it. What is hope? Is it a good thing? Does it help? Is a little bird a good enough dose of hope? Maybe hope punctures rather than sings. That's something to ponder. Another writer, Barbara Kingsolver, said, "Hope is a mode of resistance." That seems like a facet of Jesus' hope too, doesn't it? I can't help but think of King Herod ordering the death of children because he has heard of Jesus' exceptional birth. And I can't help but think of Joseph, Jesus' father, who gathered his little family up and got out of town to avoid this murderous fate. Hope does look like a mode of resistance. And these days that seem so often so dark and so discouraging, indeed, some days seem to hold little hope. I think of another poet and writer, Mary Oliver, who wrote these words in her essay, Winter Hours. In the winter I am writing about, there was much darkness. Darkness of nature, darkness of event, darkness of the spirit. The sprawling darkness of not knowing. We speak of the light of reason. I would speak here of the darkness of the world and the light of, but I don't know what to call it. Maybe hope. Maybe faith, but not a shaped faith. Only, say, a gesture or a continuum of gestures. But probably it is closer to hope that is more active and far messier than faith must be. Faith, as I imagine it, is tensile and cool and has no need of words. Hope, I know, is a fighter and a screamer. There you go. Have you ever thought of hope that way? A fighter and a screamer? Maybe you need that kind of hope. Maybe you need it at certain times. There are a lot of different aspects and facets of hope. And I hope that one of them that we spoke of today speaks to you and will travel with you a bit. Hope is not going anywhere. It's both ancient and ever new. It kicks us off onto our annual Advent journey, and it stays and it walks and persists along with us. It even encourages us to grow in hope and be hope in this world. Nelson Mandela once said, "May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." A challenge and a blessing to take us well beyond Advent. May we all see the face of hope on our Advent walk as we draw closer to God's light and the birth of the Christ child in us. I leave you with a blessing by pastor and artist Jan Richardson. It is called Blessing of Hope. So may we know the hope that is not just for someday, but for this day, here, now, in this moment that opens to us. Hope not made of wishes, but of substance. Hope made of sinew and muscle and bone. Hope that has breath and a beating heart. Hope that will not keep quiet and be polite. Hope that knows how to holler when it is called for. Hope that knows how to sing when there seems little cause. Hope that raises us from the dead, not someday, but this day, every day, again and again and again. May it be so. Amen.